Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Kali, Colombia at Sham Ashram, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Colombia. And we're all in Colombia. Kaustubha's at a different house, you can see. And me and Mara sharing the mic because our internet connection is sort of weak. But we're doing pretty good today. I think our internet is strong. And
I got a good strong connection over here.
What a great interview last night. If you missed yesterday's interview with Radhikesh Prabhu, the astrologer, who shared a lot of his story. What a story, huh?
Yeah.
You know, well-paid physician with his own medical center. A weird fluke out of his control gets sent to prison. His beautiful family, like shocked and supportive, and he just taking shelter of Krishna the entire time. If you haven't heard that episode, check it out. We're having a rough time uploading the programs, huh?
It just takes a little bit longer than normal.
Just takes a little longer.
We can't hear Mara very well. You got that mic.
Can't hear Mara. Mara, you gotta stick your head over here when you talk.
It takes a little bit longer than normal from here because we have a slow
Yeah,
connection,
that's better.
but they're uploaded.
Alrighty. How are you?
Hey, you know what we
Settling
should
in?
mention? You know, I just noticed a social media post about was Ben and Esther's down in San Diego opened over the weekend to like
that.
1.5 hour lines like the entire all weekend.
In Southern California, if you want a good vegan bagel shop, it's not just a bagel shop.
Deli.
It's like a Jewish deli,
Yeah.
but all vegan. And our good friend Mukunda Kishore and Govardhan's got one up in Oregon. This is the next. This is where you got to go next, Mara. Vegan Jewish delicatessens. I think you got to get into that Ben and Esther's franchise with them.
Could work.
All
Yep.
right. I'm sick of trying to plan your life for you.
Does Raghunath have to do everything?
I have to do. Anyway, I will say January 1st was, I like to do a fast through the new year on December 31st and into the New Year's to sort of set the mood. And I've done that traditionally, and it just
Really?
didn't work out this year. I just nothing worked out this year because we had traveled and our plane was delayed. It didn't crash.
Plane
It was
crash.
delayed. I ended up eating breadsticks on February 1st. It was a big January 1st. It was a big carbohydrate mess. And so it's over. I had to do a makeover Monday on January 2nd. Yesterday was my first day of the new year. And sometimes you just got to get a do-over in. I did a do-over. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm excited for the new year.
Do you have a nugget for the new year?
Yes, I do, my friend. This is a good nugget. This is a nugget from Vaksheshika Prabhu's book.
Upcoming book
Upcoming book, yeah.
called Your 7 Spiritual Superpowers. Bet you wish you had that title, Virgo, huh?
Oh, he beat me to it. Okay, ready? Have you ever seen this sentence?
Well, why
on
don't you read the title for it too?
All right. The mind is always searching for a network to join. That's a great state. I mean, you could spin off that for a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you ever seen this little sentence on your phone, searching for network? I remember looking at that one day and thinking how the mind is always searching for a network too, especially when traveling. I look at the phone and it's going back and forth. Where's the network? I need a network. I want to hook up to some network somewhere. If I don't take charge of which network my phone connects to, if I just walk out the door, my phone will hook onto somebody else's network. And for some reason, my cell phone grabs onto something called Xfinity. Who told it to do that? Not me, unless I deliberately disable the Wi-Fi, or if I let it go to a specific network, it goes right to the bogus Xfinity thing, which does nothing for me as far as I can tell. The mind is like that too. It's always searching for the network to join. So choose your network, or it will be chosen for you. Decide where you're going to hook your mind and pre-program it. Ask yourself, which network do I want to be hooked into? They're not all equal. The mind is always searching out for something to log onto. So you have to be really deliberate about it. The word yoga comes from the Sanskrit word yuj, means to link. So, right, LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So continuing the metaphor of searching for the network, yoga means linking your mind to the ultimate network. There are lower networks, there are higher networks, and we can usually link our mind to the ultimate network. We call that Brahman, a spiritual network that the mind can be connected to. In fact, the human mind is very high technology, much higher than an iPhone. Is that true? Even than the newer iPhones? Maybe not 13. I don't think it's higher than 13. Right?
But it's close.
Our mind's pretty good, but come on. In fact, the human mind is very high technology, much higher than the iPhone. It is designed to network with higher spiritual energies, and you can train the mind to hook into that. This is what mantra meditation is all about. No extra charge, just a little bit of paying attention. That's where you got to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Your most important asset. And you can learn to hook into that network. There are volumes written about the experience. Ooh, that was good.
You like that? Yeah. There's this, Srimad Bhagavatam.
I like it. I'm going to steal it.
Steal it. But Srimad Bhagavatam sometimes...
It's called parampara.
Yes, it is. But these texts are called Shabda Brahman, right? It's like spiritual sound. It's a network of spiritual sound. And we just have to be deliberate about it, right? Just have to say, okay, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to connect to it, connect to that network. Another example of how computer technology helps us understand yoga teachings, particularly about the mind and the connection between the body, the mind, the self, all of that. You there, Raghu?
I am.
Okay.
Something's up. There's some little slight delay somewhere. Okay. Ever have that Zoom experience where it delays you and then it speeds you up? So it sounds like Kaustubha Alvin. That's what you were Alvin. You were Alvining to me a little bit.
Well, I hope maybe we have to consider asking people to turn their pictures off again if there's a lag or something like that.
These Zoomers are too attached to looking at our faces.
They get to see our faces.
Oh, I guess they can see us. No. All right. Where are we at? We are on...
Where are we at?
4. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam dojayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord, Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being. Unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. And to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated. And loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Midatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Reading from the Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order. That sounds pretty serious, doesn't it?
It does.
Chapter 1.
Well, let's slow down, Raghunath. Slow
Creation
down.
of the fourth order. That's like
So
a
we're-
movie title.
Yeah, it does sound like a Star Trek thing or something like that. We start a new canto today, right?
Exciting.
Very exciting. Fourth canto.
12 cantos were
We definitely got a lag going on here, Raghu. It seems like we can't. It seems like we can't. We're not connecting here. You think?
maybe. You know what? I think we'll speak in patches. How about that? Your patch is coming up. I just want to share that we have a big live group with us today. Excited to have an audience live. That's when they're in the actual room with us. Why don't you start off, Kaustubha? Why don't you
I don't know
this first chapter, which can get a little.
Okay. I don't know if talking in patches
Mara is walking around and
it's gonna work.
well, you know what she's doing? She's taking everybody's video away against their will.
Forcing them.
She's like, people are like, no, I'm not there. She's forcing them
Okay.
to take their video away.
I think it'll help.
All right, so you start.
All right. So, back we heard about, I don't know, like, I think it was 13 chapters in the last canto, the last 13 chapters, they all stemmed from this question that Vidura asked Maitreya, right? And we may as well just go ahead and, as we start a new canto, say, how the whole Bhagavatam's coming down. It began with the sages in Naimisharanya. We're asking Sutta Goswami questions. That's sage level 1. And then Sutta Goswami referred to, he went back in time. He said, well, you know what? I can answer your questions by telling you the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I heard from my guru, Shukadev Goswami. So then that's sage level 2. He goes to that level of storytelling. And within that level, we hear Shukadev Goswami telling Maharaj Pariksit about a conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. So that's sage level 3. And so Vidura asked Maitreya about Svayambhuva Manu, right? Now, Svayambhuva Manu, he's one of these kind of like very important universal, he's got major universal responsibility. Lord Brahma is born from the lotus flower that comes from Lord Vishnu, so he's the firstborn kind of person in the universe. And his son is Svayambhuva Manu. And he's a progenitor. He's responsible for helping, what would you call it? Like
Populate the universe?
Yeah, populate the universe. And so from Svayambhuva Manu, like all the characters of the Bhagavatam are going to stem from. We hear that he has 2 sons, he has 3 daughters, and then even the descendants coming from them kind of like branch out. So like really so much, practically everything that we hear in Bhagavatam, all the stories are stemming from like lineages coming through Svayambhuva Manu, through Atri and through Marichi. And so Vidura asked him about Svayambhuva Manu, and where Maitreya went to was he began to talk about Svayambhuva Manu's daughter, Devahuti, and how Devahuti married Kardama Muni, and from the 2 of them came the birth of Lord Kapiladeva, an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. And he gave these very important teachings on yoga and on bhakti. And so we heard 13 chapters on that, I think it was. Now, to begin the 4th canto, it's going to kind of pick up on that conversation. Okay, we heard about Devahuti, one of the 5 children of Svayambhuva Manu. Now we're going to hear about the other 4. First, we're going to hear about the daughters, but we also hear a little bit about the sons. And so much comes from this. So this first chapter of the 4th canto is called the genealogical table of the daughters of Manu, of Svayambhuva Manu. And, if this show were like a formal study of Srimad Bhagavatam where we're like all taking notes and, we would read this entire chapter, because from this we're going to hear references to so many characters that will later appear in different ways in Bhagavatam. But because it's more of a show than exactly like a study.
It's a show. We wanted a show. We got a show.
Yeah. So it would, it's going to be long lists of names, and
it's like reading through a family tree. It's like it's
Yeah.
interesting, but a little boring.
Well,
Just a
and the
little
thing
bit.
is, if you're cooking and listening to the show or driving your car, it's not going to do much for you just to hear.
Some
like, all
people, you know what, they need a podcast to give them some, they don't have time to even listen to a whole podcast. I mean, a lot of the guys on Zoom and some others out there, they're listening in details and they are taking notes. But a lot of times people just tune into a podcast for like 10 minutes on their way to work. And they need some little bit of like a little nugget, a little uplifting thing just to make their day work. So we're going to skip out these very, very long lists when we go through the Bhagavatam because this happens a few times. So we're taking the what's the word? Prerogative to hop over when we need to hop over things.
Okay.
And this
And
first
so-
chapter is just like that.
Yeah, and so what I'll do is I'll just mention some of the characters that are mentioned here that will play out later, and they're important. And if we want, we can mention a couple of things about them. But let's see. But it begins this. It's mentioned that Swayambhuva Manu had 3 daughters. One was named Akuti, one was named Devahuti, and the third one Raghu hot seat.
Devahuti, Akuti, Braguti?
Well, half right.
It was Guti something.
It's Prashuti.
Something with the Guti.
Her name was Prashuti.
Prashuti, that was it.
Yeah, and
Isn't that
I
an
think-
Italian?
Prosciutti.
Prashuti.
Akuti, Devahuti.
Wow.
And so but some of the characters that we hear about, we hear about the son. There's a mention of the sons of Swayambhuva Manu. Do you know their names, Raghu? Who are the 2
Sons
sons?
of Swayambhuva Manu? I'm just going
Yeah.
to pass on that one. That's okay.
Okay, you want to phone a friend? So they were Priyavrata and Uttanapad, right? And both of them are going to play out big in the 4th canto. From Priyavrata, he had a daughter named Devayani. In the 4th canto, we'll hear about 5th canto, Rishabdev, who is also an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. In the 11th canto, we're going to hear about the 9 Yogendras. And of course, Bharata himself, who the Mahabharata in all of India is named after, they all come in the line of Priyavrata. So we're going to hear about all of them. And again, for people that kind of grew up in this or are deep into this, all of these names, they play out not only in Bhagavatam, but in Mahabharata and Ramayana. So like you want to learn about these lineages and who was born of who and all that to put it all together.
It becomes fascinating. You become like a historian, a Vedic historian.
And then from Uttanapad, another son of Swayambhuva Manu, Dhruva is going to be born. And we're going to hear about Dhruva in the 4th canto and in great chapters and great teachings. King Vena is born in that lineage, who's like this really horrible ruler.
Bad guy.
Eventually the Brahmanas have to take him out with sound vibration. But he's followed by Prithu, who's like this incredibly good leader. And then Prachinabarhi and the Prachetas. And also an important character, we'll get to him in a minute, named Daksha. Right? And Daksha plays out right at the beginning of the chapter that we'll get to today, the 2nd chapter of the 4th canto. But we also hear about Marichi, like Marichasana, right? The yoga people know of him. Kasyapa, Durvasa, Brihaspati. We hear about how Ravana, Kumbhakarna, and Vibhishana take birth in these lineages. Chitraketu in the 7th canto, incredible stuff. Brighu, Shukracharya, all important characters in Bhagavatam. And then, then we hear about Daksha and his 16 daughters. And one of those daughters is named, and it's described who they marry and who they give birth to. But one of those daughters is named Murti. And you know who she gives birth to, Raghunath?
Who Murti gives birth to?
Someone very mysterious.
What do you say we take Raghunath right off the hot seat today?
Well, I'm going to give you a hint now. Someone very mysterious.
Desiree Moore.
We
Desiree
mention
Moore.
not Desiree Moore, and we mention this person every morning in our mantras.
Narayana Rishi.
There you go, Narayana Rishi. Yeah, she gives birth to Narayana Rishi.
Yes.
And the chapter kind of pauses a little bit and talks about how the Devas pray to Narayana Rishi. Very interesting stuff. But that's just a short break. But the real important thing, where the chapter ends, the first chapter ends, is the 16th daughter of Daksha, right? What happened to her? And so this is the way the chapter ends, text 65 and 66. Maitreya says to Vidura, the 16th daughter, whose name was Sati, was the wife of Lord Shiva. She married Lord Shiva. She could not produce a child, although she always faithfully engaged in the service of her husband. Now, why didn't... Because we're hearing about how all these people were they were populating the universe. Why didn't Sati, the 16th daughter of Daksha, have a child? The reason is that Sati's father, Daksha, used to rebuke Lord Shiva in spite of Shiva's faultlessness. A little tension here. Consequently, before attaining a mature age, Sati gave up her body by dint of yogic mystic power. And that's the pastime that we're going to come up to now. We got about 5 chapters that explain this whole story. So you can imagine Vidura must have been intrigued by this. Hold it. Daksha's daughter killed herself by yogic mystic power because her father was criticizing Lord Shiva.
I probably would have asked about that one also. I was like, wait a second, stop the genealogical table. What the heck just happened?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what played out. You can imagine Vidura and Maitreya sitting on the bank of the Ganges River in Haridwar. And once that got mentioned, hold it, let me hear more about that.
Hell me.
And so that's where we pick up in the second chapter, which we'll begin today. The chapter 2 is entitled Daksha Curses Shiva, which is the first of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chapters dedicated to this one pastime. Raghunath, so many great lessons come out of this pastime, isn't it true?
We're gonna uncover them right now.
Well, let's uncover them.
Ready? Text one.
Text 1.
Vidura inquired, why was Daksha, who was so affectionate towards his daughter, envious of Lord Shiva, who is the best amongst the gentle? Why did he neglect his daughter Sati? Lord Shiva, the spiritual master of the entire world, is free from enmity. He's a peaceful personality, and he is always satisfied in himself. He is the greatest among the demigods. How is it possible that Daksha could be inimical towards such an auspicious personality?
And it's interesting because Daksha, there's something about Daksha is a character that pops up quite a few times in Bhagavatam, right? And it's like he's a very impressive person. He's like incredibly well behaved. He's in general, he's very religious. He's very self-controlled. He's got a lot of really great qualities.
He's very learned. He's a leader. He's an elder. He's one of these people that almost like command a lot of respect, but it's got a little bit of an ego.
A little bit. Yeah, and that little bit can really screw up all the rest, right?
It's like one bad apple. One little bit. You put one little thing in our character can sort of destroy those other good qualities.
Yeah. And so when we hear about Daksha, we're going to hear about him in several places. And although he's such like a dignified person and a respectable person, in Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam, one of its, themes is how our religiousness, right, our following of all the rules of religion and all of that, it doesn't downplay the importance of that, but what it does is show that all of those rules and regulations and culture and all that is meant to lead somewhere. And it's through it, one's meant to achieve divine love. And if you got all of the rest and you don't develop that divine love, then it really hasn't gone where it's meant to go. And so Daksha kind of gets exposed like that, in many ways he's incredibly impressive, but sometimes he forgets what it's all about. And that's how, and I think it's kind of like what Bhagavatam is doing, is saying, look, even Daksha, even this person who was like so advanced in his religious practices and so dignified in his behavior, because he missed out on the essence, he made big mistakes. Don't miss the essence. Understand where it's always going. That's what Bhagavatam is always pointing to, the spiritual essence.
The main thing with Daksha was he didn't keep the main thing the main thing.
Mm-hmm. There you go. That's right. And now if we look at these texts 1 and 2, we'll see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 adjectives to describe Lord Shiva spoken by Vidura. You want to hear him?
Yeah.
He called him Shilavatam Shreste, the best among the gentle. Right? He called him Chara Gurum, the guru of the entire world. He said Lord Shiva is Nirvairam. He's free from enmity. Right? He doesn't have any animosity towards anyone. He called him Shanta Vigraham. He is a peaceful personality. He called him Atmaramam. He's always satisfied in himself. And he called him Jagato Daivatam Mahat, the greatest amongst the demigods, the greatest amongst the devas. So he seems like Lord Shiva, you know, through Vidur's eyes, Lord Shiva is just like, how could anyone have a problem with him? You know, how did this discord develop that Daksha's own daughter would take her own life? He can't understand it. Okay. Text 3.
Text 3. My dear Maitreya, to part with one's life is very difficult. Would you kindly explain to me how such a son-in-law and father-in-law could quarrel so bitterly that the great goddess Sati could give up her life? Text 4. The sage Maitreya said, in a former time, the leaders of the universal creation performed a great sacrifice. So this is like some religious ritual in which all the great sages, philosophers, demigods, and fire gods assembled with their followers.
It must have been like a major, like a
big
big time.
event. Yeah.
All the fire gods were there, Raghunath.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of I don't know, the Super Bowl, something like that. Well, we don't have anything like this anymore.
But I wonder
Maybe.
what the fire gods are exactly. I'm not sure what the fire god, but it may mean devas who accept offerings through the fire. Do you know?
No.
About the fire gods?
I don't know.
We should look into that.
Okay.
It sounds like a topic you'd be interested in.
I am. I'm really influenced in the fire gods. Yeah. Influenced by his personal bodily luster.
Hold it. You skipped one.
When Daksha, Mara's moving up the thing without me knowing.
It's all Mara's fault.
It's called radical irresponsibility.
Right.
Blame everybody for everything. Take no account.
Always blame somebody else.
When Daksha, the leader of the Prajapatis, entered that assembly, his personal bodily luster, as bright as the effulgence of the sun, the entire assembly was illuminated, and all the assembled personalities became insignificant in his presence.
Amazing.
Influenced by his personal bodily luster. What does that mean? Personal bodily luster.
It may mean actually his physical luster, like he was glowing.
Beauty.
He had that yoga glow.
An aura.
He had a major yoga glow going there.
All the fire gods and other participants in the great assembly, with exceptions of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, gave up their own sitting places and stood in respect for Daksha.
Now let's talk about this.
He's impressive.
He's very impressive, right? Because it was mentioned that who did it say came to this thing?
All
the great sages,
thinkers,
philosophers, demigods, fire gods.
Fire gods were impressed.
Even the fire gods were impressed with his luster, and they're fire gods.
We're fire. We're like this guy.
And you're more lustrous than us. And so, he was so impressive. And you know, this is a forum wherein, you know, there's no hangups about hierarchy, right? Like actually there is. This is an instance of it, but in others, in general, people are like, they were showing the etiquette. You know, they had a clear etiquette, and everybody in that assembly except 2 people stood up because they were all like, "We respect you. You are impressive." But the 2 that didn't stand up were Lord Brahma, who is Daksha's father, and Lord Shiva.
Father didn't stand up.
Yeah. Now Lord Shiva is a son of Brahma. He's you know, the reason the 2 of them didn't stand up, like the concern regarding etiquette, was that both Brahma and Shiva, they are like guna avatars. They are gods of the 3 triad. They're 2 of the 3 who are like responsible for the entire material world. So it's a very high position.
Yeah.
But Daksha was looking at it another way. He had no problem with Brahma not getting up. But Shiva was his son-in-law, right?
So he felt a little higher. Like, this guy married my daughter, so therefore he's under me.
He's under me. Yeah, and not only that, he had issues with Lord Shiva, so maybe that made him even more inclined to see things that way. Like he could have seen things one way.
He had issues. He had issues before with Shiva.
We're going to hear about that because he's
Okay.
his son-in-law, and he wasn't particularly pleased with his son-in-law because he judged him by certain externals that he didn't understand.
Okay. I get
So
that.
let's hear about that.
Daksha. Daksha was adequately welcomed by the president of the Great Assembly, Lord Brahma. After offering Lord Brahma respect, Daksha, by the order of Brahma, properly took his seat. Before taking his seat, however, Daksha was very much offended to see Lord Shiva sitting and not showing him any respect at that. And so at that time, Daksha became greatly angry, and his eyes glowing, he began to speak very strongly against Lord Shiva. It seems like Daksha should have taken heed to the 6 pillars of bhakti.
What would that
take
be?
no offense.
Take no offense. That's right. See the good, maybe?
He got offended.
Isn't that one?
See the good in Lord
I see the
Shiva.
good. Yeah, he didn't
I
see
will
the
not
good.
criticize. Maybe all the 6 pillars of bhakti could have been engaged here.
Yeah.
All the sages, he said, all sages, brahmanas, and fire gods present, please hear me with attention. For I speak about the manners of a gentle persons. I do not speak out of ignorance or of envy. Shiva has spoiled the name and fame of the governors of the universe and has polluted the path of gentle manners because he is shameless and he does not know how to act. He has already accepted himself as my subordinate by marrying my daughter in the presence of fire and of the brahmanas. He has married my daughter, who is equal to Gayatri, and has pretended to be just like an honest person. He has eyes like a monkey's, yet he has married my daughter, whose eyes are just like those of a deer cub. Nevertheless, he did not stand up to receive me, nor did he think it fit to welcome me with sweet words.
Well, now
right?
things are getting out of control right now.
I know.
Right? Like he walked in there, everybody respected him. Brahma and Lord Shiva remained seated. He was like, Brahma, okay, but Shiva, no, he should have shown me more respect. And you know what? He could have kept his mouth shut, right? He could have thought about it. He could have said, you know what? He may be my son-in-law, but in many ways, he's my superior. Like he could have flipped it that way, right? Like that's the way devotees are trained to think. You know, we train the mind in the habit of taking the humble position, right? Like, well, yeah, maybe he's my son-in-law, but he's actually this. You know, he's actually like, you know, the god of the Tamaguna. He's like this incredibly high level and special person, and see him through the eyes of Vidura, like the way that Vidura saw him, seeing all these good qualities. But he just couldn't get over that. And then what happened was he started to speak, right? And all the turbo scenarios in his mind started to come out, you know, publicly. And that just like kind of reinforces the seriousness of the, you know, the problems going on in his mind. You know, they expanded when you start to speak them publicly, you know, and reach the emotions and the minds and the hearts of all the people that are in that assembly. So now he's like in a full-on tirade going off on Lord Shiva, who's like this incredibly special soul.
You know, it's a big problem with getting accolades from people, because generally we're rooted in our false ego. Once I get an accolade, I think, yeah, well, you know, I deserve it. I'm doing so much. And then I get another accolade. Yeah, you know, well, I deserve that. It's about time people start to recognize how great I am. And then you get more accolades. And after a while, it's like when some fruit trees get so much fruit, it starts to bend the tree, like a peach tree. We have this peach tree. It starts to bend the peach tree. And sometimes you can even snap the actual,
The branch.
not the branch, but the actual whole trunk of the tree. If the tree's small. So it's one of these things that even within the culture of devotees, naturally you get the blessings and the information and the knowledge and the wisdom and almost like a beauty and the peace that comes with transcendental knowledge. But unless we're offering it all back to, well, by the mercy of my gurus, by my teacher's mercy, by the mercy of the great souls, we become arrogant And that just does not, it's like oil and vinegar. They just don't mix. It doesn't mix. Arrogance does not mix with bhakti culture. And sometimes, and I know you've seen this too, you see great Vaishnavas, and they're sometimes taking a very humble role, or they're, doing some menial service. And they're like, why is he doing this service? He's so exalted. They like to do this menial service in the normal world. Why would we do such a thing? But they like it because they like that type of humility, and they like to set an example of, this is the win here. We're trying to become servants. And if we do play the role of teacher or guru, it's only because that is a service too. It's not because we're thinking we're very qualified. So that is like it's the biggest trip line in the material world, is the arrogance that comes with our self-importance.
Oh, there's a takeaway right there. The biggest trip line.
It's a trip line. I just made that up on the spot. Good. I'm gonna keep
Trips
that
people
one.
up.
Trips them up.
Dude, where do you get a trip line? You go to the hardware store. So I'll take a couple trip lines and.
You got to make them. You got to make your own trip lines.
Right.
You got to find some twine.
But no, Raghunath, I think you just brought out like an incredibly important point. It's like we may want things in this world, like I want more money or I want this or that, but really, like respect and prestige, like, kind of like that's something that's very deep. Even people that are on the spiritual path and have gone far along that path, that's an anartha, that's an unwanted, internal mindset that it's very difficult to let go of, And I think part of what it means to become a deep Vaishnava, a deep Bhakti-yogi, a deep devotee, means recognizing that in oneself and step by step dismantling it. Like we need to come to the realization that even though the mind wants that taste, like, Daksha walked in there, he was shown so much respect. But because he didn't get it from one person that he thought he was supposed to get it from, he felt totally unfulfilled and went into a rage.
It's the desperate search for validation from others that it really brings out the ugliness in us. We have to find our validation. We always say our worth is our birth. You don't have to get your worth from, like, I don't need Mara to tell me, yeah, you're cool. Sometimes I do need Mara to please tell me I'm cool, but we shouldn't go looking left and right to get our validation. Our validation comes from God. We're already valid. The fact that if we have some self-hate going on, something's wrong. We are spiritual beings. That is our worth. We're born worthy. We're born worthy. Our worth is our birth. And then acting in a dharmic way or a way of integrity, that gives us more worth. Our worthy activities give us self-worth. There's no amount of public accolades or validation that is going to make me feel grounded or whole. And we see that sometimes people that get the most validation, they're the craziest. They're not the most grounded. They're actually, it doesn't make them more peaceful. It makes them more neurotic. And here is Daksha, who gets so much validation, so much respect. Everybody's looking up to him. One person doesn't do it. It drives me crazy. I can relate to it. I get a lot of validation with what I do. I get lots of text messages and mails. Thanks for that show. I really appreciate. I really do that. I get a lot of thumbs up. And then all of a sudden, one person went right thing. One comment on my Instagram, and that one thing will drive me insane. And I become like Daksha. I noticed that. So anyway, we hear these stories, and they're meant to remind us of our shortcomings. Not that I should go on a tirade about, oh, that Daksha, what a nut. But more like, this is me. I want to see me in this archetype of Daksha.
Yeah, I'm not even nearly anywhere close to Daksha's, quality of a person, And
right.
But even he's doing this. So what, how much I need to be careful of this. And I like your point, Raghunath, is like, I can relate to it, right? Perhaps we all can relate to it. But let's say that Daksha walked in there and he was showing all this respect, but then you notice Lord Shiva didn't get up, right?
Right.
And at that point, even if he felt what he's feeling here, if at that point if he would have been trained by Guru, trained by association with Vaishnavas, trained by the Shastra, if he would have been able to say, oh, you know what, that disturbs me, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut, and maybe I'll talk to a friend about this, or you know what, it really pissed me off that Lord Shiva didn't get up, and I'm really upset about this, and try to work that out. But the big mistake that he made, and it's a mistake that we're going to see leads to disaster, including the suicide of his own daughter, right? This is the birth of it. This is where it all starts, is that he opened his mouth and started verbally criticizing another, particularly someone with the kind of the great qualities of Lord Shiva. But if he would have kept his mouth shut, and then tried to deal with it in a more progressive way, but he just started. When you hit that anger level, you're capable.
You lose
of
all
saying things.
intelligence. You lose all intelligence. And it's one that the sounds that come from our mouth, they can either liberate us or destroy us.
Imagine how Daksha felt when his own daughter, who he loved so much. I mean, it was because of his deep attachment to his daughter that Lord Shiva upset him so much, right? If he didn't care about his daughter, he wouldn't be so worried that her husband was like this. But because he loved her so much, and then she rightfully becomes disgusted by his own behavior, by what he said publicly and how he behaves towards her husband. And then she's so upset with him that she takes her own life right in front of him. How he felt. When we, like you say, when you hit that stage of anger, you can lose all intelligence. We need to recognize when that anger is welling up in the body and say, now I got to be really careful.
Now I got to breathe.
Yeah,
breathe, Raghu. Don't go there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
There's another thing going on here. Maybe we can look into it tomorrow. But he's going on a tirade where he's just like insulting him, one insult after the other. But when great souls are insulted, or when the Lord is insulted, what the commentators do is they always say, like, this is the way this could be understood in another way. You know how they do that?
Right. Let's talk about that tomorrow. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
The commentators are seeing the good through the insult. There's some they juke around the Sanskrit, and they pull out some good quality in it.
Yeah,
because they can't tolerate hearing blasphemy against Lord Shiva.
Right.
I had no desire to give my daughter to this person who has broken all the rules of civility. This is Lord Shiva continuing. Because of not observing...
Daksha continuing to describe Lord Shiva.
Sorry. Because of not observing the required rules and regulations, he is impure. But I was obliged to hand over my daughter to him, just as one teaches the messages of the Vedas to a Sudra.
This is all of that kind of like religious pride,
Yeah.
All these kind of things. He doesn't follow the rules. I follow the rules. He doesn't follow the rules.
He doesn't follow the rules. He's low class.
He's low class.
Why would you teach, these learned wisdom literature to a low class person?
Yeah.
He lives in filthy places like crematoriums, and his companions are ghosts and demons. Naked like a madman, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, he smears crematorium ashes all over his body. He does not bathe regularly. And he by the way, you can see how sometimes you could probably see already, like Daksha has been taking notes and keeping records of wrongs. He's been waiting to explode. This is called like unspoken criticism. And now he's in this chance, there's an exit for all this stuff to pour out.
The turbo scenarios.
He's been harboring all this for a while, and now it's all flowing right out. He does not bathe regularly, and he ornaments his body with a garland of skulls and bones. Therefore, only in name is he Shiva, or auspicious. That's what Shiva means. Actually, he is most mad and inauspicious creature. Thus, he is very dear to crazy beings in the gross mode of ignorance, and he is their leader. On the request of Lord Brahma, I handed over my chaste daughter to him, although he is devoid of all cleanliness, and his heart is filled with nasty things. The sage Maitreya continued. Thus Daksha, seeing Lord Shiva sitting as if against him, washed his hands and mouth and cursed him in the following words.
So it's like he intentionally he washed his hands and mouth. He was going to sit down and do this right. Like, I'm going to curse him right now. I'm going to Wash my hands, wash your mouth, sit down, focus.
I'm
and now
ready.
he's sending out that curse.
The demigods are eligible to share in the oblations of sacrifice, but Lord Shiva, who is the lowest of all demigods, should not have a share. Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, in spite of the requests of all the members of the sacrificial assembly, Daksha, in great anger, cursed Lord Shiva and then left the assembly and went back to his home.
Can I mention one thing, Raghu?
Yeah.
Text 18. Again, now this is, you have that Atmavan Manyataj you got. We were talking about that the other day, like the way
Yeah,
that I
whatever
see the
you're
world.
thinking everybody else is thinking.
Yeah. So, and what was, was there something impure in Daksha's whole spiritual or religious practice? He says here, the demigods are eligible to share in the oblations of sacrifice, but Lord Shiva, who is the lowest of all demigods, should not have a share. Like, this really upset him. Right now, Lord Shiva's probably thinking, like, I don't need your share. He's Atmarama, right? He's like, it was mentioned earlier in the chapter. He's self-satisfied. He's on such a deep spiritual level. He's not concerned with getting some share of the sacrifice, getting some share of the oblations. He's like totally beyond that. But Daksha can't even see that. He's on such a lower level. And he's criticizing him, like, oh, he shouldn't get his share. It's just like, we become like that often, when we criticize others, or, it's when we criticize seniors, criticize, people we don't even really understand where they're at, Anyway, it just shows, it's revealing, my point is it's revealing more about Daksha than it's revealing about Shiva.
Yes. A bug was on my eye. Okay. Upon understanding that Lord Shiva has been cursed, Nandishwar, one of Lord Shiva's principal associates, became greatly angry. His eyes became red, and he prepared to curse Daksha and all the brahmanas present there who had tolerated Daksha's cursing Shiva in harsh words.
So just see where this is leading.
Right, here it goes.
And now,
It'll be a brawl.
These followers of Lord Shiva, they're like, he is the kind of the master of the tamaguna.
He's the worshipable deity of the demons and ghosts.
Yeah, well, those that are in that are attracted to tamaguna are attracted to Lord Shiva, right? And tamaguna means destruction. It's like there's an element of destruction in it, and so like his followers can get really destructive, and so and angry. So to hear hear the cursing of Lord Shiva, well, now Nandishwar gets up and he's just down to destroy now. It's like, he's really got it going now. So we're going to hear about it.
Anyone who has accepted Daksha as the most important personality and neglected Lord Shiva because of envy is less intelligent, and because of visualizing in duality will be bereft of transcendental knowledge.
That's
pretentiously
that statement right there. Like he's actually seeing more clear. You're seeing based on duality. I like Lord Shiva. I don't like. He's clean. He's unclean. He's beyond all that, and Nandishwar gets it.
Pretentiously religious householder life, in which one is attracted to material happiness and thus also attracted to the superficial explanation of the Vedas, robs one of all intelligence and attaches one to fruitive activities as all in all.
This is he's got
this is clear
Daksha's
vision
number.
here.
Yeah, he's exactly where he's at.
Daksha, is Nandishwar the bull?
No, that's Nandi.
Okay.
I'm
Daksha has
almost sure. I'm almost sure that it was Lord Shiva's bull getting up and saying that.
Daksha has accepted the body as all in all. Therefore, since he has forgotten the Vishnu Pada or the Vishnu Gati and is attached to sex life only, how does sex life get in here?
Because
within
he's a
short
progenitor.
time, he'll have the face of a goat. At that point, everyone didn't even understand what he was talking about, but it will all come clear soon. What does he mean on the face of a goat?
But is attached to sex life only because I think that in other words he was the progenitor, Prajapati Daksha.
Okay.
That was so like he's just all caught up. That's part of his religious duty is to actually progenitor, to create progeny. But like you're just what is your sex life? Your extension of your sex life is your family and so on. Sure. But he's just seeing everything as like his domain.
Those who have become as dull as matter by cultivating materialistic education and intelligence are nesciently involved in fruitive activities. Such men have purposely insulted Lord Shiva. May they continue in the cycle of repeated birth and death. May those who are envious of Lord Shiva, being attracted by the flowery language of the enchanting Vedic promises, and who have thus become dull, always remain attached to fruitive activities. These brahmanas take...
Prabhupada writes here in the commentary to that verse, the Vedic promises of elevation to higher planets for a better standard of materialistic life are compared to flowery language, because in a flower there is certainly an aroma, but that aroma does not last for a very long time. In a flower there is honey, but that honey is not eternal. So we hear that term in Bhagavad Gita and so on, the flowery, language of the Vedas, which are promising us material things, the four Vedas. So Daksha was very much, what's the word I'm looking for? Stuck in that Vedic mindset of being religious, being good, being clean, being learned, being well behaved, but
and
for a materialistic purpose.
Getting a spiritual kickback.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. These brahmanas take to education, austerity, and vows only for the purpose of maintaining the body. They shall be devoid of discrimination between what to eat and what not to eat. They will acquire money begging from door to door simply for the satisfaction of the body.
Hold it right here. I haven't read this commentary, but you know what I think Prabhupada's going to talk about here?
What?
Is that this curse is a curse that plays out even to today, in the sense that brahmanas aren't real brahmanas anymore, right? Like the things that they're proud of, like how they eat so purely and so on, and the clarity of their discrimination and so on will be lost. And you'll just have these phony brahmanas who are just interested in acquiring money, simply for the satisfaction of the body. Should we read this?
Sure. The purport.
The purport, yeah. The third curse, and you go. You can read it.
Oh, you go, Prabhu.
No, you.
All right, please, you.
No.
The third curse inflicted by Nandeshwar on the brahmanas who supported Daksha is completely functioning in the age of Kali.
There you go.
The so-called brahmanas are no longer interested in understanding the nature of the supreme Brahman, although a brahmana means one who has attained knowledge about Brahman. The Vedanta Sutra also is stated, tato Brahma Igyasa. This human form of life is meant for the realization of the supreme Brahman, the absolute truth. Or, in other words, human life is meant for one's elevation to the post of a brahmana. Unfortunately, the modern brahmanas, or so-called brahmanas, who come in originally Brahminical families have left their own occupational duties, but they do not allow others to occupy the post of brahmanas. So here is the give and take. We see this in India. They're seminal Brahmana families, but you can tell by their behavior, there's a pride that goes with that. Look, I'm from a priestly family. You are not. You're an outsider. No matter what you do, you'll never. Maybe in this life, you'll never be equal to me. I'm at a very high birth. But we can also see that in the Western world too. If there's religious leaders, but their real function is we're here to make money. And we're all about money, actually. And it's sort of like chips away at your trust in these people. Yeah.
And that's what, So I don't know. He's probably said the curse inflicted by Nandeshwar on the brahmanas who support Daksha is completely functioning in the age of Kali. Yeah. We have to ask ourselves, it's something that we can ask ourselves as we go through Bhagavatam, as we go through our life, who am I in the Bhagavatam right now? Am I Shiva or am I Daksha? In my own spiritual, quote unquote, religious kind of practices, am I becoming like Daksha? Am I becoming more like just concerned with externals? Am I not actually living the essence of this thing? And
it's about easy. Me? Are you talking about me?
I said me. I said I'm asking myself.
Oh, okay.
And so that's the kind of introspection that's needed in spiritual life, and it's very easy. It's very easy to take one's religious / spiritual practices and engage it as a way of propping up oneself, one's false conception of self, Right, so easy to do. And here we see it's happening to Daksha. I think we're out of time.
Aww.
How
We
about
got a retreat
takeaways?
to lead here.
How about takeaways?
Well, we got some takeaways.
What's that one about the
move mic
tripwire?
over. Let me move the tripwire. Tripwire better have made it, Mara.
Tripwire made it.
I hope Tripwire's in there.
All right. It's all meant to lead to divine love.
Okay.
Keep the main thing the main thing. Keep the main thing the main thing.
The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
There we go. I knew there was another main thing that was supposed to be there. Train the mind to be humble.
Mm-hmm.
Arrogance doesn't mix with bhakti.
Not at all.
Self-importance is the biggest trip line.
There it is, the trip line. We're trip line from Dayton, Ohio. How's that?
That's such a straight edge band name, Tripline.
We're your trip line.
Tripline. Tripline Hardcore, Wisconsin.
Our worth is our birth.
Uh-huh.
Our search for validation is ugly.
Oh, yeah.
Am I Daksha or am I Shiva?
Mm-hmm.
Beware of spiritual materialism. And introspection is needed in spiritual life.
Boom. You know what else is needed? Kirtan.
Tripline straight edge.
Trip line.
Thanks,
You want to say
everybody,
thanks to Trap
joining us.
Down Under?
It's 6 a.m. all this week. So, we had 61 plus people this morning on Zoom. Hey, join us on Zoom, people. I know it's hard. I know you Midwest people, it's hard to get up. Got to get up a little earlier. Thank you for joining us.
Mara's got to release everyone again.
What's that?
Release them, Mara.
Release them.
Turn your videos on.
Turn your videos on so we can see ya. Welcome back. Thanks for dealing with us with this internet. We're excited to be here in Columbia. We got check out the Roddy Case interview we did yesterday. You like it, and I want to thank everybody for joining us on Zoom. If you want to join us on Zoom, if you're one of the others out there, email Mara, wisdomofthesagers108@gmail.com. Thanks for all the people that support the show. It means a lot to us, and it helps the show keep going. If you want to be a monthly supporter for whatever you can give, it's patreon.com/wisdomofthesages. And do we have a date? Because we're going to get a class by Roddy Case on astrology, like an overview of astrology. He was going to give me and Mara and Bobby this class privately, but we decided we'll make it for Patreon members, and we're going to do it. Did you decide when we're going to do it?
I'll send it out on the
You didn't hear that.
I think we're going to do it on Wednesday night, but I'm going to confirm one more time with him. And
Wednesday
it'll go
night,
out
you
on
said.
the
Can't hear
WhatsApp.
you so well, Mara.
We're going to do a class maybe on Wednesday night. We'll confirm it on an email for Patreon members. An overview on Vedic astrology with Roddy Case, and he might do it in more than one class too. We're going to do it live here in Cali on Zoom. Thanks everybody for joining us. Now put your hands in the air. Wait
Wave
a
them
second.
around
What's
like you
going
just
on with
don't care.
Live? What's up with these people? Come on.
I think Mara's got it. Oh, live, people.